Hello, Freedom Seekers. What defines your future? This is a very important question for anybody who's going somewhere with their life. You know, whether you're going from transitioning your relationships from monogamy to non-monogamy, or whether you're going from transitioning your income like I am, you know, from being something where you're having to trade your dollars for hours to being more passive and ongoing, where you can travel around the world and have your income continue coming into you, or even where, you know, you are wanting to make more money than you are. Maybe right now you make $60,000 and you know, you can see yourself making maybe $65,000 next year. But how about $200,000? You know, what defines your future? I'm going to talk about that here in just a moment. But first, let me go ahead and introduce myself. For those of you who do not know me or are not familiar with me, I'm Non-Monogamous Mark. I'm the co-founder of Non-Monogamous Lifestyles Association, and we help people through education and association and events and opportunities to liberate their lives and live what we call the ELF life. That's easy, liberated, and fun, living an ethical and consensual non-monogamous life. And that's a life with people enjoy having more sex with more people more often, and it's a great life. So my life wasn't always that way, though, in that I spent the first 27 years of my married life in monogamy. And then my wife and I opened our marriage, and this video is not about that, but I do want to take and really dive into this topic of what defines your future, because, you know, if you are monogamous right now, or if you aren't making the kind of money that you want to make right now, because those are the two topics that right now that I'm focusing on the most, is helping you to liberate your sex life and your relationships to go along with that, and liberate your work and wealth as well. What does define your future? You know, if you're in the penitentiary system and they're trying to rehabilitate you before you get out of the penitentiary, one of the things that they really try to help to instill upon your mind is giving you a new identity, so that they will tell you things. For instance, your past doesn't have to define your future. And that is so true. You know, even when I started this video just a few minutes ago, that's now in the past. And that does not have to define who I become and who I am in the future. It takes me back to a story that growing up, I didn't grow up in a happy environment. It wasn't a happy, I was not a happy individual as a youth. And so as I you know, approaching getting out of high school, well, college wasn't going to be a possibility for me because I didn't have any money, and nobody in my family had any money, and nobody could send me to college. And I was never told and never seen, never had the identity of being a particularly smart person, and so I didn't have the academics to be able to get a scholarship or anything like that. I wasn't a jock, so I wasn't going to go to college on an athletic scholarship, and so college wasn't even a possibility for me. And I decided to join the Army, and decided to join the Army. Fort Lewis was really close to home. And Mom, then she kind of just thought, hey, this is going to be great. You know, my little boy can live at home and then just drive back and forth. I had a car, and I'd just be able to drive back and forth to Fort Lewis and for work every day. And so I went out to that Army recruiter, and the day I went to go sign all the papers, he says, well, you know, you can be stationed anywhere around the world that you want to be stationed, because we're doing what we call a guaranteed duty assignment right now, and as long as they have the job that you picked on that particular duty station, then you can go there. And I said, well, how far can I get away from home? And the gentleman says, well, you can go to Germany. And so I said, sign me up for Germany. Now, the reason that I had decided to do that is that I instinctively knew that my surroundings and the people that I was surrounded by helped to define who I was and subsequently define my future for me. And I didn't want my future to continue to be defined by my past, because that's generally how that works. The people in your life and they kind of know who you are, and at least who they think that you are, and they keep reminding you who you are. And that's the whole thing with if you're in prison, if you're a prison inmate, because in reality we all create our own prisons in our own mind. If I just mentioned about income, if you're making $50,000 or $60,000 a year, you just can't see yourself making $200,000 a year. You've created that financial prison in your own mind. If you're living a monogamous life and you really just can't see yourself living an ethically and consensually non-monogamous life where you can have more sex with more people more often, you've created that prison in your own mind. And so as far as then what is going to define your future is going to be defined by the prisons that you create and allow in your life. And so these prisons is what I want to talk about then, because like I said, then I made that choice to go to Germany because that would be a place that nobody knew me. And I didn't know myself. I didn't know who I wanted to define myself as. And I just knew that I needed a change. I needed to shake some things up. In fact, that was the topic of my video on my weekly wrap-up this Monday, this last Monday. As I really knew I needed to shake some things up in my life. And to do that, I didn't want to be amongst the same people who would keep reminding me who I was. And that's the thing in prison. They say that, that if you're around the same people that keep reminding you that you're a drug addict or a drug pusher, or if you're a thief, or if you're a murderer, or you're a no good, you'll never amount to anybody person, you keep being around those kinds of people and you're going to end up back in prison. And so they really work to transform the mind. And this is what we call in my coaching process that I work with people on. It's what I call the reframing process. And that is to reframe what goes on here so that we don't keep ourselves in a prison. And so by me going off to Germany then, joining the army and going off to Germany, then I was basically trying to create a blank slate for myself. But so many people that maybe yourself, that you've got maybe a family, like kids at home, you've got a mortgage, you've got a job or a career of some kind or a business, and you can't just join the army and head off to Germany where giving you a blank slate and a fresh slate to start out. So what are some of the things that you can do, and what are some of the things then that keep you locked into the prison that you're in, whether that be your monogamous life or whether that be making $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a year? What are the prisons and what defines your future? Well, I'm going to tell us now about telling my partner Kat, and that she herself, even on a video that we made together, she commented about how she could be really good at arguing for her limitations. And so, and she has, in the past. And your past does not have to determine your future. But in her past, she was really good at arguing for her limitations. Now then, I could have held space for her in that same place. You ever heard the term holding space for a person? Well, and so we can do that. We do that for our kids. We do that for our spouses, our boyfriends, our girlfriends. We do that for our brothers and our sisters and our friends. We hold space for them, and we think that we know who they are. But see, a better conversation to be had is, who do you want to become, and hold that space for them? Instead of holding the space for them and arguing and defending the place where they are at, or where they have been, or where they have come from. Because then you are helping to lock them into that prison. If that place happens to be monogamy, if that place happens to be making $40,000 a year, or maybe even worse, $30,000 a year, Wherever that place is with finances and with your personal life and with your relationships, you can hold that space for other people. Instead of having conversations, where are you going and where would you like to be in the next 2 years or 5 years? I talked a little bit again the other night on this last Monday night's weekly wrap-up video. I talked about, how you can work towards the sexually liberated life that you want to create. Don't let your past define the sexually liberated life you want to create. I don't do that. I have a sexually liberated life that I love living today. But when you find that you love living the life that you have, you want more. And so yes, I want more sex with more people, more often than what I have today. And so if you find that that is you too, then don't allow your past determine or define your future. Allow yourself to want and have more sex with more people more often. But there is a transition, and going back to our coaching process, we have to reframe our minds oftentimes. In reframing our mind, we have to, just like in those rehab programs in prison, they have to help that person create in their own mind a new identity that they are someone else besides a drug addict, or someone else besides a lowlife, or someone else besides a no good person, or somebody else that is never going to amount to anything. And so they have to work with these prisoners to create a new identity in reframing their mind. And that's the same for you. And the question I'd have for you is, have you reframed your mind and created that new identity that says, I'm living an ethically and consensually non-monogamous life? Yeah, that's right. I know that some of you out there are living a life as, don't tell anybody, but you're cheating on the side. And I'm not going to be your judge for that or anything, but certainly I am just so excited to be living my ethically and consensually non-monogamous life that my partners all know that I've got other partners that I enjoy having sex with. And so that's just became who I am, is I'm non-monogamous Mark. And they know that. And so have you made that shift in your own identity, allowing you to be non-monogamous instead of living a monogamous life? If you haven't made that shift in your own prison of your own mind, then you're going to continue to live a life, maybe a life that you really don't want to live, and that'd be a monogamous life. So then another thing is, as I can mention, is that you can hold space for people. Now, Kat and I had a conversation this morning, and as we mentioned, that she, in her past, she's been really good at defending her limitations. And when you defend or argue for your limitations, guess what you're going to get? You're going to get your limitations that you're arguing for. Well, but we also sometimes we defend or argue for other people's limitations. And that's what Kat was doing this morning, and she's gotten really good at not arguing for her own limitations like she used to do. But now she's arguing for her daughter's limitations. And or defending and arguing for kind of the same thing. And so she's defending those limitations. Now, it's never ours to define and determine then what someone else wants in their life. But, for instance, I've used this example before. Over my non-monogamous 13 years that I've enjoyed, I've met a number of young women who, or even middle-aged women, who have defined themselves as being shy. And the question then that I always have for them is, do you want to be shy? Because that's oftentimes what they'll say, I'm really shy. And I say, well, is that something you want? Because I don't want to then just determine that, that's not good, or they shouldn't be shy, or they don't want to be shy. No, they are the person that has to make that decision. And so it always starts with asking that person, is that what you want? And if that's not what you want, then let's talk about what you do want. And what do you want to create that's different from that? And you can start right today and right now creating that. And so you've heard the term holding space for someone. Oftentimes, we either defend someone for who they were or who we see them as being, or we hold that space for them so that we really don't give them that opportunity to become all of what they want to become. I remember myself with my family background and all, and I stepped out and saying that, yeah, I want to make X number of dollars. And I had my grandma tell me, who I loved my grandma, she says, well, who do you think you are? And I got comments from the people in my life that were like that. And so what determines your future? The first thing is your own framing in your own mind. You create the identity that you want. And so that determines your future, is the identity that you accept. Instead of really sitting down and being intentional and determining and designing the life that you want to have in your future. If you sit down and design that life that you want to have in your future, then that's the first step of having the future that you want. And then the next thing is that your associations. And I've talked about this a lot, and it's because those people are going to, if they're not someone that's actually saying, okay, who is it that you're wanting to be? Who do you want to become? What life do you want in your future? And if they're then not there helping you get there, like in my own case, when I turned 49 and realized that I had become a big fat middle-aged man, had gained 110 pounds from when I got married 27 years before. I says, well, wait a minute. Look at all the people that I'm hanging out with, spending time with. My spare time activity is going out riding motorcycles. And I had a big old motorcycle. I loved and enjoyed riding, and all my buddies would go out with me. But just like me, over 20 years, they had all gotten fat and getting fatter. And that's why then I decided, okay, that's not something I want to continue. And I traded my motorcycle in for a bicycle. And I found a new group of people that I wanted to hang out with because they were actually going to help me to create the person, the identity, and the future that I wanted for myself. And sometimes then we need to change our associations, change the people that we're hanging out with. And for me also, there was a point years ago in my life that I had to say, wait a minute, I'm just not going to hang out with my family anymore. Because it was my family that kept trying to tell me and define for me my future by saying, this is who you are, Mark. Well, who do you think you are? And I didn't want it to be any longer defined and have my future limited by the members of my family. And so that meant that I had to spend less time hanging around them, less time talking on the phone and checking in with them. And today, of course, we didn't have text then, but less time, texting. And same thing with things like Facebook. Those people that you hang out with on Facebook or social media, it's the same thing. They can help to keep you in that little box that defines who you are now and defines your future. And if what you want in your life and your future is a life where you're having more sex with more people and more often, then come along and join our community of people that have more sex with more people more often, because they'll help you to get there as well. And so don't allow other people to limit you and restrict you. Don't allow yourself to limit you and restrict you. Determine the identity that you want to create in your life and in your world, and then associate with people that have and share that vision for that same identity. And they're either living that identity or they're in the process of getting to a place where they can live that identity. And that's true with your relationships and your sex life. You want to be living a liberated, sexual, enjoyable life, an easy, liberated, and fun life that's ethical and consensual, non-monogamous. And that's true in your income as well. Do you want to make $200,000 a year? A lot of people do. A lot of people make that much money that's never seen that kind of money before. Why not you? They're not any smarter than you. They don't work any harder than you do. And so that's where next year I'm going to launch a program for my Financial Liberation with Benefits Club. And so that I'll help people living an ethically and consensually non-monogamous life to get out of those limitations of finances that they have right now, they're kind of stuck and living with, and help them to move past that so they can become financially liberated. But that'll be for next year. And so for right now, just keep taking and changing that identity that you have about the monogamous life that you had in the past, and now you're moving to live an ethically and consensually non-monogamous life that is easy, it's liberated, it's fun, and you're having more sex with more people more often. So thanks a lot. Give the video a like and subscribe to the station. You know, just hit that subscribe button and click the little bell so you get notifications when I'm making a new video or coming on live. Have a great day.